You're listening to The Machine, a computer science education podcast from Waterford Institute of Technology. My name is Rob O'Connor. I'm a lecturer from the Department of Computing and Mathematics at WIT. You'll find us on Twitter at machine_podcast, and we also have a Facebook page, which is just Machine Podcast, although I'll be straight with you, it's not updated that often. This is our first episode of the new academic year, started September 2020, a very different academic year to what we're normally used to. So we thought we'd reflect that in the first episode and have a chat about online teaching and learning. On the panel today, it's Siobhan, Drohan and Colm Dunphy, both regulars on the podcast in the past. I recorded a piece with them just before recording this introduction, actually. We talked about this emergency remote teaching, online teaching, how we found it, tools that work for us, tips, tricks, observations, all sorts of random things. And I began by asking them what was the best thing and the worst thing about the online teaching and learning experience.
I suppose if I start with the worst thing, I haven't overly hated it or anything like that. I've enjoyed doing it. It's the admin. The admin side is the worst thing for me. I'm used to just walking into a classroom and you give a lecture and you walk out and you're done. Whereas now you have to set up an area where the students will all congregate online, like in Slack or some other sort of messaging tool. You have to send them a Zoom link. You're then either recording that Zoom link or you're pre-recording stuff. And it's that workload, and the admin side is what I haven't liked about it. But what I did like about it is that I actually found I did start getting really into it and start enjoying recording stuff and pre-recording and releasing them and trying to fine tune how I deliver. I found that was something that really helped me as a teacher. Like.
And what's the worst thing? Sorry, what's been the best thing I meant to say?
It's the best thing for me is that I really enjoyed starting to record myself, video record or audio recording myself. And I found that I was able to start listening to how a student would listen to me because I had to listen back to them. So I started figuring out different ways of delivering stuff that I think has kind of made me sound a bit better. I don't know.
Okay, Colm, the same question to you. What's been the best thing and the worst thing about the online experience for you so far?
I probably need to think about that for an hour, but off the top of my head, a couple of things. I really like the flexibility. So it's not so important that you have to be somewhere at exactly 11:15 for a class. You know, you can arrange it. It's more flexible. It's flexible for the student as well. And I am actually studying at the moment, so I'm seeing it from both sides. So I really like the fact that everything doesn't have to happen at exactly a particular moment in time. Also playback. So in everything I'm involved in, it's video. There's a lot of video involved. And have you ever been in class and you don't quite get it when the teacher is talking about it? And if you just had a chance to rewind, but you can't rewind the teacher, you can do that with online. And I think that's really, really useful. Also, the different modes of learning. So, you know, traditionally you go to a classroom and it gets delivered one way, but now we can get the information different ways, you know, whatever help we need. I think it's the whole experience online. To me, it's better. I do like meeting up with people, but you can do face-to-face online. And what I love seeing is students taking off. So you have a problem, you don't give them the answer, they figure it out between them, and then they go off on this whole tangent, and they're learning more than you ever wanted them to learn. You know, more than you ever intended. And I think that's really, really good. The peer learning that you get. So I think there would be some of the pluses, and also reuse. You know, that really difficult topic that you hate going in to teach. You know, right at the end of the semester, when you prepare it really well, now you can reuse it next year. You know, it's not going to change next year, and you can get to reuse it. So if you put a lot of effort in to, as Siobhan was saying, you know, you're thinking about when you listen to it back or you watch it back and you try and improve on it. When you improve it, you know, you're getting the best version, and then that best version gets reused, as opposed to always doing it live, and maybe it's good the first time and not so good the second time. So you're always improving on it, and summarizing and reducing down, and I think that really helps.
Yeah, it's funny because I was trying to think of, even though I asked that question of you, I'm trying to think of the answer myself. And I know what you said, you could think about it for an hour, and actually you could ask me again in an hour and I come up with a different answer.
Yeah.
But kind of on a quick snap reflection, I would probably echo what Siobhan said. I have found the admin very, very difficult, very, very challenging. Now, maybe that's because part of my job is the course leadership, which is that has been very, very challenging this year, particularly with first years, because they're coming in a different environment. So I have found that very tough.
So I didn't mention what I didn't like. I only gave you the good bits.
Oh God, you did. Sorry, I jumped in there with my 2 feet. Go for it, Colm. What don't you like?
So the workload, it's much bigger. The time involved, but as you said, the admin, particularly if you're doing course leadership, all those follow up emails, and actually email is something you try and avoid in online. I think that's one of the tips I would suggest is don't do email. It will cut things down a lot. You need to be more immediate, but that comes with a downside, which is burnout. I think I would be very worried for staff and students this semester in particular to avoid burnout. We had a big debate about 12 weeks on the trot without any study week or midterm break or anything like that. And the debate became, thankfully, there was a debate about having a week, and different schools and departments have chosen different weeks to have them. But I think that the debate probably needs to extend out a little bit further. It's how many of them are we going to have now? Because I do feel 8 weeks, I know one school is doing 8 weeks on the trot. I would really fear for the students and staff burning out. And certainly if they don't burn out this semester, they ain't going to be able to do it next semester as well. And I think Siobhan would back me up on this.
Yeah.
But isn't that one of the isn't that one of the major drawbacks then of the whole online experience? In that you see somebody in class, you can kind of tell. You can tell by their body language. It doesn't even have to be spoken. You can tell if somebody's struggling, or you can tell. You can see. You can look down at a lab. Bunch of students working away, like we work in computing, so a bunch of students working away at a problem, and you can tell if somebody's getting nowhere or if they're just banging their head against the wall, figuratively speaking. Whereas with the online stuff, that is, I'm finding it very hard, even though we're only a couple of weeks in, very hard to track how people are getting on. So I can see where that would be problematic. All right, yeah. But on the plus side, because I know I jumped in with my 2 feet and stopped Colm in his tracks. But the plus side, what I found really, really good is it's really made me focus on content, focus on what is actually the real meat and potatoes content here, and what's just waffle.
Yeah.
And so the system that I'm using for a module, first year module in particular, is a pre-recorded lectures and then live Q&As afterwards. And I'm trying to get the lectures no longer than 30 minutes. So cutting down what would have been an hour in class down to 30 minutes. And it's you have to be kind of ruthless, I'm finding. I know, Colm, you would probably say it should be 15 minutes. It should be less. But I'm aware of it. There's lots of schools of thought that it's not about how much, it's about the quality. It's quality, not quantity. But I found that to be really, it's actually, I think it's actually
classroom.
Yeah, it is like a flipped classroom, but it's maybe reevaluate what we're teaching and the way that we're doing it. Now, whether it works for the students or not, I don't know. We're only a couple of weeks in, so it's hard to tell. And it's I suppose where it becomes difficult is that what can we learn from what happened last semester and apply to this semester? Because last semester we only did the back half of this
and we knew the students personally as well, which was a big difference.
And like, so Siobhan, you and I share a module, and we actually had a lot of the actual content already done. So we were only had a few little bits to finish off. So it wasn't the same as now where we're starting again from scratch. I don't know. Again, if either of you have any thoughts on that, please jump in.
Yeah, that was my worry leading into this year, and it's not just one semester; it's two.
It'll be the whole year. Yeah,
it's going to be the whole year, no doubt about it. And that's why I was extremely worried when I saw 12 weeks without a gap. That's my biggest fear for staff and students this year. And I'm speaking from somebody who has burnt out doing it. and
Yeah.
then go into another year having recovered, knowing the dangers, and do it all over again, because it's addictive as well, supporting your students online, using messaging applications like Slack or Teams. It's been shown to be addictive. We love helping our students, and now bing, they're stuck. Bing,
At
there's the
all
answer.
hours.
Bing,
Yeah.
and 24/7. And so setting the limits is something you have to do. And here's the thing: we're told this up front, but we still make the mistake over and over again because we want to help, and be as immediate as possible. So yeah, that's one of the.
I've noticed that as well. And this year, like I'm using Slack this year as kind of the messaging tool for our labs, and just for, as Colin was saying, I'm trying not to use email because I'm trying to keep all of the communications relating to a particular module in one place, which is going to be in the Slack area. And when I set up the channel this semester, I automatically set every single person, including students, to snooze from 5:15 to 9:15, 5:15 in the afternoon to 9:15 in the morning. So they're automatically snoozed. So that means that if I even send an email or a message, after 5:15, they don't get it until the morning unless they decide themselves they want to unsnooze themselves. So it's kind of, we're trying to push out that, it's 9 to 5 and you need a break as well. It's not just the lectures, it's the students need kind of radio silence as well from the communication to do with education 24/7. They need a break.
What kind of, we're onto Slack and tools here, so maybe we might just explore what tool set are you both using for your modules. Maybe Siobhan, we might start with yourself.
The modules, I've chosen the same tool stack as for all of my modules. So basically I'm using Zoom for all of my live videos. Anything I'm pre-recording, what I'm doing is I'm using the recording tab that's in PowerPoint, and I'm recording. What it does is it records your audio on every single individual slide. So the audio for that particular slide is attached to it. So you can move your slides around and your audio moves with them and everything. And then you can produce an MP4 from it, which you can upload then to YouTube. Now, there is a lag in all of that, but I just find it so handy for re-editing and going back in and changing things. It's not an immediate promotion up to YouTube. There is an extra overhead where you have to manually produce an MP4 from it, and you have to then upload it into YouTube. But I work smart around that, in that I would have the video producing in the background while I'm in a lab with students. So it's working away in the background. I don't need to be doing anything else other than just being in the lab with students. So so I use Zoom for lives. I use PowerPoint recording tab to do any pre-recorded videos. And I use Slack then. I've set up a Slack channel for each module, and I use that for my labs. And we kick off a Zoom in those. And what we do then is, if students have any questions, we push them out into a breakout room. We follow them out into the breakout room. They share with us, and they share their screen with us. And then when the problem is solved, we just all return back into the main room. That's us. Yeah.
And in terms of the actual material notes or lecture material that you share, are you using Moodle, the online platform?
Both. I'm using Moodle, and I'm using Tutors, the tutor tool stack that Eamon DeLester developed. So it's a separate little website outside of Moodle where all of my notes are, and it'll be all of my lab notes and lecture notes are out there. But I'm also using Moodle for, we've used the H5P activities that are in, it's one of the options that you can choose in Moodle, and you can create loads of self-directed learning tests in there. So it'll generate really fast, like word searches, quizzes, order these statements in sequence, blah, blah, blah. It does all these things for you really fast. And the students can go in and do that.
And Siobhan, just what was that called again?
H5P.
And would you need to have, would you need to be a programmer to use it?
Absolutely not. No. And because if you actually go into the activities, so you just do your add activity, whatever it is, select your H5P interactive option, and it'll give you, there's loads of different types that you can do. You can start with the very easy ones. The word search is particularly easy. You just type in the words with a comma in between them, and it'll generate an entire word search for you that they have to look for specific words in there. There's the true and false are quite simple. If you can do a quiz in Moodle, you can use H5P.
Great.
And there's a website. There's also, when you actually start creating a new one, there is a thing of, there's a link saying see examples or something like that. You click on it, it brings you out to their website, and you can see an example of it running. So it's really handy.
Excellent.
And they seem to be doing it. Yeah. Oh,
Brilliant,
and
brilliant.
I've also switched on completion tracking in Moodle. So,
yeah.
So that's a new thing that's come into it, from what I can see. And it's, you switch on completion tracking in Moodle, and then you can give an option that they can either tick it, saying that it's completed for themselves, or you can set some criteria. Maybe they might have to get 8 or whatever it is, all the questions right in your quiz in order to have completed it. But I've set it up so they can manually tick them off, just like a to-do list for themselves. And it'll give them a percentage of the module of the week's work that they've completed. So just to kind of, for themselves, that they know they've done it.
That's great. I actually turned on completion tracking on your advice, and I made a bags of it, because every single thing on the Moodle page has one that has evolved over years, and everything is marked. So I have to go in and uncheck so many items that they don't need to click on all of this stuff down here that's not even active anymore. It is, but it is. I can see the benefit of the feature, even just for a student's point of view, to be able to track. Okay, I'm 25% of the way there, or I have all of this section completed. You know, it's good just to make sure they haven't missed anything.
That's it.
Colm, what the same kind of question to you then? What's your tool set? What way are you going about things?
So about 4 years ago, we looked at a whole technology stack and came up with this thing called Tutor Stack, which we've published and we refine on an ongoing basis. And we did this for the Higher Diploma in Computer Science, which is our first fully online program at WIT. And really what we're trying to do is cut down the number of tools that someone would need to know to teach online, to have recommendations, and really try, find the best for each thing. There's 4 layers on it. So instruction and materials. On that program, I use tutors that Siobhan's already mentioned. But in some of the other programs that I'm teaching...
Can I just stop you there for 1 second? Just because we've mentioned tutors a couple of times, that tutors is just basically a website that is produced with content.
Yeah, it's a single page application. What's nice about it is it's templated. It's got a markdown language, which is, it's very minimal to be able to create nicely formatted content. And it specifically has a feature in it designed for doing steps in labs, which we do a lot of. But it's very visual, so it forces you to use graphics. It's card based, it's hierarchy, so it's easy to find your way around. And we've used it as a program, whereas currently with Moodle, everything is a module. So we don't see the whole program come together. So it gives us a program view of things. So it's pretty nice for that. And the other thing is, the students can actually archive the whole program as a zip file. So they get everything, bar the videos, right? They get everything bar the videos. So any handouts, any materials, any links, any notes, descriptions, labs, all of that. It's just one, it ends up as being a single file that the students can take away forevermore, which is quite useful. Whereas you'll find if a student logs into Moodle after a few years, it doesn't exist anymore. So that's tutors. In some of the other classes that I'm teaching, I would just use standard Moodle, and I try to tie in with the program as opposed to just forcing my technologies on. I try to use what they're using with everybody else, so that you have to be conscious that the student has to learn all these different ways of doing the same thing, and I try and minimize what they have to learn. For example, if we go to communications, I like using Slack. Many other lecturers like using Teams. I have one group this year who said, yeah, we're using Teams with some of the other lecturers. We'd like to use that instead. And I say, oh, fine, so that's what we'll use. I'm not too worried about what the technologies are. For video communications, it's generally Slack with Zoom. That would be my preference. And then
that's for live video, is it?
Well, for communication and community is how I would describe it. So, you mentioned you're putting a video up at the moment, your notes and a talk through video, but then at the end of the class you'll do a live Q&A. So Zoom is brilliant for that, and also for doing breakouts. So getting the students into groups, smaller groups, to discuss things, and then come back and share those findings with the bigger group. So I kind of use Zoom for that. For assessment and feedback, for the formal assessment submissions, Moodle is great. For quizzes and things, I would use Socrative, or Socrative, whichever way you like to pronounce it. And that's nice because we can ask questions, put the answers on the screen without seeing the person's name. You can hide the names. But you can also track within it. So you mentioned about you don't know whether somebody's doing well or not. So I can use it for tracking that way. We also have a new analytics feature in Tutors. And that enables us to track absolutely everything the student does, but graphically. So we don't want a big report with numbers in it. We have heat maps now that we generate, and with traffic light systems on it. So you can, you're green, amber, or red. And if you're in the red, then we start chasing you. If you're in the amber, we're going to start chasing you if you don't change quickly. And if you're in the green, you're flying. So we leave you off. And like that will track, every time somebody visits a page, every time somebody does an exercise, it creates this heat map for all of that. And it's still in development, but I think you've tried it yourself, and Siobhan.
Yeah.
And we find that really useful for getting an insight into who's struggling and who do we need to follow up with. And then for the last layer is media. And for media, so Zoom has changed the game because it does produce really good video. It'll save to the cloud now, so you don't have to, render and then upload.
That's a game changer.
Yeah. So that, and the green screening in it is fabulous compared to what we've been using before. Traditionally, we use OBS, which is Open Broadcast Studio, which is it's open source. It's great for, what's nice about it is whether you're doing pre-record or live video, it's exactly the same workflow. We've set it up that way. But then some other nice things that make things nicer, because not everybody has a Surface Pro, not looking at anyone. So how do you do annotation if you don't have a fancy tablet? So we've been using a Screen Brush, which is a €2.50. That's not 250, but €2.50 for a professional version of a tool that makes annotating the screen as opposed to a document or an application. That's a bit of a game changer, being able to write on the entire screen without having to open up an application. So it's really useful, even for simple things like showing somebody how to use a computer. How do you put something in the trash can? Being able to draw on the entire desktop and show that I think shows off exactly what that does. And
Colm, can I just stop you there?
YouTube.
Oh yeah, YouTube. Yeah. Sorry, no, but just about ScreenBrush before you finish there. I know ScreenBrush is available for the Mac. Is it a cross-platform application?
It isn't, but the equivalent would be a tool called IPEVO Annotator, and that's completely free. It's made by the company that makes the interactive whiteboards, and they made this software to encourage you to buy one of their interactive whiteboards. But it turns out that it's a fantastic annotation tool for your computer. And one of the nice things, because I've looked at a lot of these tools, most of the tools, add a complication of it's another menu on the screen with a load of tool buttons that you can press, and that can be distracting for the student. What's nice about the two I've mentioned is that they're invisible. So we can get at the tools without having to show them on the screen. So that's a really good one. And they also make IPEVO make the document scanners, which for a lot of staff will be their way of teaching online now, is to use a document scanner and write on good old fashioned paper with a pen, but have that show up as a video.
Yeah. Sorry for stopping you there.
Yeah,
I was conscious of that. So I know that you and I both work in the kind of mostly Apple world. Siobhan, you have a nice Surface Pro.
That's it. Yeah.
Which is a very nice machine, but not everyone. I know ScreenBrush was Mac, but I wasn't sure whether it was available for the Windows world as well. Yeah, and YouTube. I know I cut you off there, but I found YouTube to be great. I found
Yeah.
YouTube to be really, really good. The only thing is the uploading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is an issue
Time consuming.
when I live in crap broadband land.
That's
But it
tough.
also means that I can do a live class, or I can do the lecture part. At least I know that will be there, even if my broadband is unreliable.
So I've used YouTube for live classes. There's YouTube Live as well, and I've used the YouTube Live for 3 years on the trot. But and to feed it, we're using OBS to feed it. But Zoom does open up more opportunities. Again, in our original setup, Zoom wasn't an option because it was a paid for product, and with the lockdown, Zoom became free. A particular version of it, and it was so popular and so easy to use and so easy for students to understand. Like nobody had to get a lesson in how to take a Zoom class. You maybe to give one, but certainly not to take one. You can just work it out. The whole world has been using Zoom for months. So therefore, it's the right tool for students. Now, if we contrast that then with a competing tool, or some say it's competing, Teams. I think most people that come to Teams, it has all the features, right? There's somebody in Microsoft with a big, huge grid, and they're looking at all competing products, and they're creating every single feature, and every day they announce another feature they're adding to it. But it's impossible to use. It's not intuitive. And I won't say impossible, it's just not intuitive. And it will get there, and it'll pass them all out, I would reckon, in a year or two. But right now, it's still not there.
There's a Zoom activity in Moodle as well, that when you add the Zoom activity to Moodle, you can set up all of your Zoom calls. Say you have a class at 9:15 on a Monday for an hour. You can set it up as a recurring class in there. They'll all appear listed in that Zoom activity in Moodle. The students can click on that link. It'll only let them click on the one that's currently active at the moment. When you do your recording to the cloud in the Zoom, when you've done your lecture on that particular week, you do your recording to the cloud, it'll automatically send you an email to say your recording is nearly ready. Go preview it, and you can switch it on for your students to see it. You go back into Moodle, into the Zoom activity, you click on the cloud settings, and you just toggle the button on and off, and you can see the students then can all see the recording. So it's seamless. Zoom is just, it's phenomenal for doing that. And there's so little workload on you. All you have to do is just click cloud record. When you get your email, go back in and toggle the button on, and they have your recording.
There is one caveat with the cloud recording in Zoom, and that is there is a limited amount of space, and it's not per lecturer, it's per the institute. And because everybody has turned this on, we're going to start getting very big bills very soon, and you might find that becomes restricted.
Yeah.
But for now, it's a free for all.
As they say, that decision will be made above our pay grade. Right, come here. One thing that I am concerned about with the whole teaching and learning online, right? Because so I would always say that a third level education, it's not just an academic education, it's also social education, cultural education, and a student's own personal development, whatever way that's going to go. Okay. Often it's the first time they might be away from home or exploring the world on their own terms, as opposed to necessarily through an on-rails system, even though they are still on rails to a certain extent. I've noticed, say, certainly third and fourth years who I'm interacting with seem to be okay because they already have pre-existing social groups. I would be concerned about first years because they're coming into college without an existing social group. Second years, I'm not too sure about because, they had the guts of an academic year there, but I don't know how well they've all gelled yet. I'll know in a couple more weeks when we see how things go. Are there any other issues like that you think are maybe kind of hidden that we don't see that maybe we need to be tracking?
Do you want to go ahead, Siobhan?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. My main thing would have been the social interaction, then being able to build a group with each other and kind of try and mimic real world life online. And it's very, very, very different for them.
Yeah,
it was my biggest worry when heading into this semester, and something I would have been flagging at various meetings. In our online program, where we knew students would never have a chance to get together, we we actually decided that we would have on-site days, and we put 4 on-site days across 2 years on this program.
And sorry, Colin, can I stop you there? This is an existing online program pre-COVID.
Yes. So pre-COVID, fully online program, and the whole idea of the social interaction is really important. And we use the word community. You have to build a community, and there's some simple things that you can do to encourage it in an online space. And for example, before our online students ever started the program, they would have got an invite into the communications tool, which would have been Slack, and we would have put up a post saying, you're welcome, but we would ask them to upload a photograph for their profile to show that they can do it, and also in 2 sentences introduce yourself. And that's before the course starts, right? And what you found was bing, 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 bing. They all submit, and now you can see the students, they can see each other, and they have an idea of, here's all the people who are teachers in the group, and here's all the engineers in the group, and here's all the computing people in the group, and here's all the people from Wexford, and all the people from Waterford and Dundalk and wherever else. And then we have your induction. And induction is really important because we actually brought them together. And now because they had the photograph, they know who to team up with, right? So they're creating those groups, and then they create their own private groups within the tool where they can post a message and only the people in that group see it, so they're creating their own personal study groups, and that's something you'd encourage in a face-to-face class normally anyway. But that has been very, very successful for the online. Now, trying to do that in the programs we're running at the moment requires induction. And I don't know, I wasn't involved in induction. I don't know how successful it was. But this was my worry, that because we're all set up for individual subjects as opposed to a program, where does that happen? And have we made the space for that to happen? And maybe the students will tell us later.
I know I was involved in induction. I did a small session on it for our own programs, and it was okay. I thought, I'm not knocking student life and learning because they're doing their best in a difficult situation. I did think it was a long day for the students, and it was all online. The possibility of bringing that number of people on campus is just not there. I don't know how you get around that, though. I don't know how to square that circle. It's a tough one, but interesting enough, during the online orientation, I was watching the chat. So there was a big chat going on in Zoom, actually. And this link kept appearing again and again for Discord. Discord, which is a messaging system very similar to Slack. It would be used a lot by gamers. And there's now quite an active WIT Discord space where not just computing students, there's students. I looked on it one day briefly for a moment. I said, I'll just check it out and then I'll get out and leave them off. But I saw people from culinary arts, hospitality, exercise, health, all the, it wasn't just your kind of typical computer geeks. So what made me hopeful was that, okay, they're finding their own way. But the only thing about it is, if you're not a gamer, maybe that doesn't suit you. And for people who aren't gamers and maybe a little bit shy, I don't know what is there for them. I don't have an answer to it either. I just have questions.
I think what I've seen in a couple of classes I've taken over the last couple of years is where the college or any college doesn't provide a communications or community channel, the students will fill the void with their own.
Yeah.
And the most common one I've seen is WhatsApp. Right. And so day one, everybody gets telephone numbers, or somebody gets a list of the telephone numbers, and somebody creates the group. And if you're in the group, great. And, sometimes when you're not meeting, you don't meet on these courses very often. That can be a real lifeline if you're stuck on something, to reach out and ask questions. But the problem with WhatsApp is it goes bing, 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 bing. The notifications is just insane. I'm sure you guys have kids in sports clubs, and it's just non-stop. So turning off notifications is something you really need to invest time in, It's
funny, actually. My wife is also a lecturer, and over lunchtime, we were setting up the automatic notification rules on MS Teams, because she's using Teams for mostly for chat, as in text-based chat on her modules. She's in humanities, and it was going great for her. But then last night there was just a hive of activity on her phone because the students were all posting with each other, and it was going bing, 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 bing.
Yeah.
So it was like, right, we can set up these rules here so you won't get those notifications after a certain amount of time. And she's actually set up a kind of a water cooler channel where they can just have a chat amongst themselves and see how things go. It's interesting because I was talking, there's a friend of mine is a software developer for one of the major banks, and he's been working from home throughout all of this, and he reckons he'll never go back because they just won't do that. And the bank he works for is basically have more or less told them. But his issue was his existing social networks with people in the job were fine, but he thinks that new staff who are coming in are struggling because they don't know everyone. And if you're on text-based communication, like for example, Colm, I know you're an acerbic and dry individual, okay, and you have a but I know that you have a
gee, thanks.
I know, but you have a wicked sense of humor, okay, and I know you could have a blunt sense of humor, okay, and I mean that in a nice way. But if I got a message from you like that, I wouldn't take that as an insult. But if I didn't know you, I might think, God, this guy's having a go at me, you know. And you could understand. Yeah, you know, those are, but they're strange things, because how do you capture that? How do you quantify that? How do you allow for that? I don't know.
You mentioned the water cooler, Rob, a second ago, and that's something we would use a lot on a program. That's where everything is designed at a program level. And again, I go back to that worry I have at the moment. So Jenny has put in the water cooler in her module, but so it's only at that module they can discuss it, right? But is everybody going to create a water cooler? Wouldn't it be nice if there's a water cooler for the program? And that's actually the social space where we all come together on the program, giving a sense of identity to students on that program. A sense of identity on a program, you know, is really important, you know, that you relate to the program that you're on. We've had issues in the past where, you know, updating courses and streaming and all the rest, and people don't know where they fit. So that sense of identity is really important.
Yeah. Lots of questions, not too many answers, but, you know, maybe, in a few more months, we might know a bit more.
Well, hopefully, as time progresses, we'll be able to answer more.
Couple of tips.
Go first. Go on.
Yeah.
Tips. So this is from Pet Hates from taking courses, right? And different learner styles and things, right? So I don't know about you, but when I take a course, I want to have the notes. But the notes now are electronic, okay? And you can't, unless you have the right device, you can't annotate the notes. And that's really where we learn when we rewrite it. There's proven research that shows when you write things down, you learn from it. And my worry, and it has been a worry for a lot of people over the years, was when we introduced Moodle and WebCT, that, the notes are all up there, but they're not in the students' heads. You know, they're not able to apply it because you're not using it. Sure, it's in Moodle, and I can log into Moodle at any time. So therefore, I don't ever need to have it. As a student myself, I need to have it. So the first thing I do is I will try and recreate whatever's in Moodle on my computer in a set of folders for each module, and have all the content. And that might involve screenshotting, downloading loads of files. It's not very easy to download, you know, for a particular module, download everything for it and have it in a nice takeaway format. So that's one issue. If you extend that, most people, you know, for lectures will produce slides, and very nicely they'll deliver them as PDFs so that everybody can open them up nice and easily on whatever device they have. But if you're going to write on them, you're going to have to print them out. And I think nobody's even considering just how much paper it requires to print out the notes for 6 modules at the moment in lockdown. When it's a massive amount of paper. And even how my tip would be, don't print each slide on a separate page. You know, like the notes get delivered as PDF. Each slide is a separate page. But for students, my big tip would be, print them out so you can write on them and learn, and, you know, use it as part of your learning. But look at those print options, and you can print, 4 or 6 slides per page, and make sure you do that, because it costs you a fortune in paper otherwise. Or if you have an iPad, you can annotate, or a Surface, you can annotate, but not everybody will have access to that. And the amount of printing. We're 2 weeks in. I think I printed 400 pages last week for 2 weeks in, for somebody in the house who's taking a course as well. So yeah, I don't think anyone's even considering that you might want to print all those materials. So it came back to something we mentioned at the start, was about what really needs to be in there.
But doesn't that come back to personal preference though? And again, I would use like in our house, Jenny likes to print things. My wife, she likes to print things, and she likes to have a hard copy. I don't. I'm not really that pushed about it. No, I did buy one of the newer iPads with the pencil over the summer, and I'm finding I think that's a fabulous device. I'm really enjoying that, and I'm looking forward to using more of the annotation tools with the pencil with the new operating system update. But I know exactly where you're coming from with that. I can see the benefit of it, and I know even the act of writing, you pick things up through osmosis. I think you pick things up through a mechanical link.
But we've got different learner styles. Right, and we tend to teach to one. And if you're aware of if you're aware of learner styles, then you'll start teaching maybe to 2 or 3 of them. I think there's 8 or 9 of them in total. So, and ideally you'd be touching on them all. But for a lot of people, they do need a pen and paper, and just something to consider. That was one of my pet hates over the last few weeks.
Yeah. No, I do use Drawboard on the Surface Pro, but I don't know and that's what I use to annotate the PDFs. But I don't know if that Drawboard package works on other Windows machines. I haven't even looked at it. That might, because it allows you to annotate PDFs. That might work. I don't know, but it is a paid package that you have to buy.
Siobhan, do you have any kind of other yourself, any random tips or observations for teachers or learners?
I suppose the main thing is that even though we're streaming and we're recording stuff, and it's all been made available, as Colm was saying, that you have your videos pre-recorded, you have your records of your Zooms. Don't just go, sure, it's up there, I'll get to it later. It's so important to be keeping up to date with all of the materials, because the course will snowball out of control. If you kind of leave 2 to 3 weeks of, kind of work, and just, it's up in Moodle, it'd be grand, I'll get to that now next week, I'll do that the week after. You'll end up in trouble coming up to the end. And I suppose that's one thing to be aware of, is just because it's all immediately available at your fingertips, that it's, you're actually actively studying it.
So this has come up a few times with staff over the years, and there's a little trick you can do to encourage not putting it off. And that is, there's no requirement for staff to actually use Moodle, if you're putting in materials up there. And certainly that it'd be there forever. So one of the things I've done in the past is I announce a 3-week window. So the material becomes available. It's there for the week it becomes available. It's there the following week. It's there the week after. But the week after that, the first week disappears. And it's rolling the whole way through. So at any point, you only ever see 3 weeks of... I tend to organize my materials by week. So you'll only ever see 3 weeks worth of materials there. So it forces you. And the argument or the point about it is, I believe if you've missed 3 weeks on the trot, you're not going to catch up anyway. Certainly in the modules I'm teaching, you don't catch up if you've missed 3 weeks. 3 weeks of classes. So it encourages that. I've seen in some other departments, they actually do it as 2 weeks. So there was a big debate this year about recordings, about whether we should put recordings up or not. And I'm not going to get into that. But what I have seen in one department is they make the recordings available for 2 weeks, and they're gone after that. So it means that the student has to make the effort to do it in a timely fashion. And that's good for them. Yeah.
Right. I think what we'll do is we'll leave it there, because that's been a great conversation. We've spoken for way longer than I expected, but that's because you guys are awesome.
Thanks very much, Rob.
Full of wisdom. Full of wisdom.
What you say I was? Dry and...
Acerbic.
Acerbic. That's my word of the day. Acerbic. I'm going to go away and look that up now.
Yeah. Actually, I give you a tip, right?
Yeah.
Follow Susie Dent on Twitter. You know Susie Dent, from Countdown. She's doing a word of the day, and she's come up with some absolute humdingers now. It's been brilliant.
Yeah.
So that's a good tip
No
that has
bother.
nothing to do with anything else.
Yeah.
To Colm and Siobhan, thank you very much for your time. Thanks for sharing your thoughts and your insights, and hopefully we'll have you back on the machine again very, very soon.
Cheers.
Thank you.